Righto, give me a King's Gambit because I really want to get to the big issue. I need some counsel on Carlton. Give me a King's Gambit.
Actually, you might be the big issue. The more and more you watch footy, the more you think that it's a game of 100 contests where you're trying to take the ball from inside the traffic to the outside to then execute your kicking skills and have your turn with the footy. And then it drops back into that zone again and again. It's just a repeat. If you haven't got a player that takes the game from inside to out, you are miles behind the competition. I don't care where you sit on the ladder. I don't care what your magnets look like. You've got lovely players and informed players in there. You watch what Dangerfield does to games with sheer brutality, taking the game from inside to out, whether he steps out, bursts out, handballs out, the ball goes from inside to outside in a heartbeat. I see Pendlebury do it. I see Tom Mitchell do it. I see Bontempelli rip the heart out of Fremantle last Friday night. Brisbane have now got 4 or 5 players going through there that can do it. It used to just be Lockie Neal. Now it's Ashcroft. It's McCluggage. It's Dunkley. Rowell and Anderson have become a magnificent pairing at taking the game from inside out. Matt Rowell's getting better right before our eyes, but you've got to see it. You've got to recognise it. Laird does it. Parrish does it for Essendon. Cornelio does it for GWS. I can go through the competition. Who is it at Sydney? It's the same problem at Sydney in these sorts of games every time. Because I look at it and I say, oh, they don't really threaten. They don't come out by handball. They don't. They're 18th in the competition at leaving a stoppage with handball. They just surge kick, dump kick, and then it's a problem for the next contest. So that's why they're 14th for clearances and 14th in terms of returns from clearances. You know, the differential. They're in the minus. So unless you've got one, you're not competing. Because come the big games at the end of the year when you're looking for moments to separate games, stack your moments, and then all of a sudden you build some scoreboard pressure. If you haven't got one, you've got to develop one, or you've got to trade to get one. You've got to do something unique to get one. And that's why I keep coming back to Fife for Sydney, because that sort of player is missing so clearly at Sydney. It's not Luke Parker. I haven't seen Luke Parker do that for a while. And I like him as a player, but he's not that player. It's not Warner. He's first receive and then maximum damage. It's not Goulden because he's too small. So I think the Sydney Swans' major problem is not all the other stuff that's been spoken about. They don't have an inside outer, and that is the game.
They don't have the innie-outie.
Innie-outie. You got an outie or an innie?
That's very personal for a Monday morning.
Sorry,
The King's Gambit gets us underway on the means test. The big issue is clearly Carlton, as you had previously set up the idea of the audit. I think your audit comes against Ross Lyon these days. And Carlton, Blues supporters warned me last week.
You did this.
They were pessimistic. Man, don't be pessimistic. And then I was quite deflated. Couldn't even get my popcorn out yesterday.
3 weeks ago, you said, go and stack your 20 points. Go win 5 in a
Go win 20 points. Set yourselves up. We've left 8 on the table. No, I was worried by yesterday. I'd held the previous week. I was wrong. But it was inescapable yesterday.
So this is where we're all looking at the coach, and I think Michael Voss is a terrific person, terrific coach. What he's done in the first 25 games was outstanding. Now there's challenge and trauma. So the whole art of coaching is maximising your talent, whatever that strength area is, and forcing that on the competition week to week. So saying, here, this is where we're strong. Come and beat us when we're strong. So the two big boys forward of centre, they're clearly not maximising those guys. Clearly. So when you go through the basic numbers, okay. So they're 14th in the competition for supply inside 50. So that's a problem. So they're not getting absolute volume, but it's still 52 inside 50. It's not 40. It's still 52 a week. So the reason why they're not getting 56, 58 or 60 is because they have the 4th worst forward half pressure in the comp. So most of your inside 50s come from those repeats. Out in, and then the big boys can be big boys. So they don't mark the ball in there. They average 10 a week. They're 15th in the competition for marking the ball in there. How can you have those two big boys down there and be 15th in the comp for marking? Then you look at the ground level. So you've got to have predictability. So if they're not marking it, okay, all right, they're not marking it. We might be getting double teamed. Obviously, might be holding an extra back more often than not. So we should get them at ground level. They're 14th in the competition for ground level. So I think they get 11 a week. Melbourne get like 17. So the gap between 11 and 17 is shots of goals. It's as simple as that. So if you just want to do it in simple terms, so Carlton's strength needs to be goals from marks. It absolutely has to be. So they're 15th in the competition at goals from marks. 15th. Like they're ahead of the cellar dwellers. So they've kicked 27 goals from marks in 6 weeks. To put that into perspective, Geelong have kicked 61. 61 versus 27. Now, Geelong have always been strong in this area because their ball use inside 50 is brilliant. Melbourne in 5 games have kicked 43. Brisbane, Port Adelaide and Adelaide have kicked 40. So they're 40% more than Carlton. Well, they're big separating. Now, GWS, you wouldn't. You got Hogan down there, Green down there, and then a couple of kids, and they've kicked 37, 10 more than Carlton. So like this is not whichever way you want to spin it or roll it. This is not maximising your assets. They did a great job last year with their midfield and had them humming, but the competition worked out okay. They can't run, so maybe we can lose a few clearances against them, and then we just turn it into a track meet, and we can. They'll have their turn, but then we'll have our turn. We've got to run them. And that's become more evident game to game. So how do they maximise Mackay and Curnow? Challenge right now with Michael Voss. And they may have to make significant structural changes, and it may cost them a block of 6 weeks where they play some different looking footy, some footy that may not necessarily win games. But it's still the long game for Carlton, for me. They're in a window where they've got an opportunity to contend. But until they can get that right, it doesn't matter how many games they win, because they won't win at the pointy end of the year without these two being the reason.
There was a phase yesterday, and I'm thinking that they're only getting their shots via free kicks. And then, so I asked you just to crunch those numbers. So 4 goals, 3 from free kicks, and 4 goals, 9 from general play. Now, I'm not saying those free kicks weren't there. That's not my point. But 4-9 from general play. That's a little bit frightening.
Yeah.
It's not. So Carlton's rise was it was nearly madcap footy. It was adrenaline. It was drenched in adrenaline, the way that they were playing, and it missed the sophistication of defence. I get that. My worry is just from the lounge room is that they've given up too much of actually what they are in search of something. They're not a doer team, and they're playing doer footy.
Yeah. Well, it can look that way without Adam Sard. They've been a victim of injury with Williams. So through the pre-season period, I was marvelling at how they were looking. You know, it was very aggressive, and they had Doherty going into the middle to be that kicker, that point of difference in the midfield. The problem that they've got is they're now trying to hide a midfielder at halfback. That is a complete fail. Kennedy didn't work at halfback. It's not working at halfback. So it makes me laugh. Everyone says halfback's the easiest position in the world to play, but as soon as you haven't got a couple, you look really bland really quickly. And without Sard, it was stark yesterday. So I'm concerned that they've got so many issues. Where do they start? I don't care. I don't care what their midfield's doing. I'm not too fussed. They got very good key backs. They got a mismatch and a false mix of a forward line, I think. And there's a lot of talk about Silvani. There's a lot of talk about their smalls. I don't know if they're that good. That you just that'll work. You have to set the game up for these two pillars. The most influence that Harry Mackay has at the moment is when he's on the wing, marking the ball on the wings. Now I understand there's a time in the game where he has to do that, but I just wonder if Ross Lyon was coaching Carlton, would those two leave the forward 60, 70, 80 metres from goal? Would they really go that far from goal? If you've got to worry about them as the opposition coach for 120 minutes, I think that's the starting point. You're not necessarily. If you can drop off those guys, they're not threatening you. And I just saw St Kilda defenders just drop off Mackay as he roamed, and he takes the mark, terrific. But he's 100 metres from goal. It's not hurting you. And then to compound their own problems, Carlton, and I showed it last night on first crack, the 6 seconds that against St Kilda, if you hold the ball before you go inside 50 when you're in flow, the numbers just swarm back. And the 6 seconds that they held the ball, and it was Mackay, and it was Curnow, and it was Fisher, and it was guys that know better, that they had one-on-ones that maybe weren't absolutely obvious to hit, but you only need to kick to advantage. You don't need to lace out every kick going inside 50. They didn't bite off, or they didn't have the trust in their forward to get the job done, so they didn't go in. And then when they do go in, they're outnumbered 11-7. So you think, well, what are you doing? So there's just got to be more freedom with how they're playing. I'm sure Michael's imploring his group to do that. But when you see it, you think, oh, they're still playing a bit rigid. Are they being overcoached in terms of too many instructions with fixing last week's high bomb entries? Oh, this week we're not going to do that. We're going to wait for a bit of precision, and they go too far.
Yeah.
So I can see what's happened, but it's not really about individual games. It's about making sure these two are such a dominant. They need to be Franklin and Roughhead of what was it, 08?
Yep.
That's what they need to be, and they're miles from that right now.
And now Matty Hill saying drop punt twice. That was the most striking aspect of the Fogarty kick. I'm going to just go back and rifle this through. I felt like that was the best bits. Rankin into Fogarty in a very watchable game. And the last 90 seconds was brilliant in all that was going on. But from a position where a young team on the road looked like they were going to lose, that those two efforts pull it, and they weren't alone, of course, but they pull it out of the fire.
Jason Dunstall said he's the only player in the competition, as we stand, that could kick that drop punt from there. Everyone else is looking to bend it over the body and have some sort of alibi if it misses. He said, no, I'm a drop punter. Let me get the job done. And I think it was 100% spot on. I don't know of another player that would elect to take that sort of kick from there and just nailed it. Just has unbelievable confidence in his own kicking skills, and so he should. So for me, the biggest moment, and we showed it last night, you don't often get opportunities as a coach to work out what your leadership is like.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal gets kicked by Fogarty, and in the coach's box, Nathan Van Velo picks up the phone to talk to the bench to say, right, this is what we've got to do, boom, 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 boom. Everyone sort of knows what you've got to do, but whether you get it done or not is the challenge for on field, because there's a lot going on for the players in their minds. They're trying to work out how long's to go, all those sort of things. So Matty Nick says, no, stop. Put the phone down. Let's just leave it to them. And you're thinking, this is risking 4 points. And they've just found a way to get their nose in front at the right time. There's 90 seconds to go. And he says, no, I want to see what we've got out here in terms of footy intel. And for the next 60 seconds, and we talk a lot about Jordan Dawson the last 3 weeks because he's playing great footy. Jordan Dawson takes his head out of the game and says, hey, this is what we need to do, boys. Boom, boom, boom. That was unreal, Gerard. That's the best bit of vision you'll see for the week.
Yep.
Don't ask an average question to a coach with a bit of fire in the belly. It's great, isn't it? Like, if you're a St Kilda fan, you don't want people taking these little cheap shots. Hey, hang on, let's straighten this up now.
Yeah.
Bang. We've played some talent, and we've made them look second rate. So we've left trauma behind. That's perfect. That's utopia as a coach. If you can leave trauma post your game, like Carlton this week, they're thinking, hang on, what have we actually got here? How did they dismember us so easily? So Ross, he'd be proud of what they're doing. Not worried about who they've played.
Run PFI for me over the Saints.
Well, the Saints have got an amazing ability to make you change the way you want to play, and that is a great place to live. So their work rate we talk about a lot. So if you haven't got elite runners in the midfield, then you have to take time and speed out of the game. You have to uncontested mark the ball more than what you want because you want to settle it down. You don't want to get involved in a game of basketball because they outrun you. So you can't have a shootout against St Kilda. If you do, you run the risk of playing their game. So then you say, okay, we're going to play a bit more patient. Then you become down the line, boring. You don't get the opportunity to access corridors regularly. You're playing St Kilda's game. And then when you do have your time with the footy, St Kilda's ability to get back in the defensive 50, and I touched on it before, the 6 seconds that St Kilda, if you don't take your option inside 50 straight away, they restrict you so well. So if you look at the numbers against this year, right? So I think they're averaging 7 marks against inside the forward 50 for the opposition. So Carlton on the weekend took 9. They're giving up 7 a week. It's clearly the best in the club. The AFL average is 12. So to have the opposition have 5 less set shots at goals doesn't sound like a great number, but what it does do, it allows you then to counterpunch again. So then we're running again. We're going again. So the ball, as long as the ball stays in live play, that's St Kilda's game. They want to run you up and back. Mason Wood, Sinclair, all these runners. Crouch is having a great start to the year. I see what Seb Ross. No one's recognising Ross as a player at the moment. What they've been able to do is brilliant. The thing that really hit me though is they've done this with bare bones talent, bare bones. So that you can talk about who they've played, but who have they had on their list to play? So I saw Membry come back on the weekend. I love Tim Membry as a player. I think he's a terrific wild card, centre half forward, third tall forward type. So in the first half, when he was full of beans, when he was full of gas, 9 disposals, 4 score involvements. So 4 scoring, they only scored 9 times. He's involved in sort of half of them. So I can see that you're going to get King back in there at some stage, and then you're going to get all these other midfielders coming back in, Jones and the like, and all of a sudden you're going to have the full complement of players or close to it in say 4 to 5 weeks' time in good fitness. This is just the tip of the iceberg. What you're seeing, this is absolute system, and start to leak a bit more talent in there, and all of a sudden, this is gaining momentum, and winning breeds winning. Success breeds success. You imagine them walking into training today. They're bouncing in. Yep. Okay, let's look at the review. Let's go. How do we get better again, coach? What do we need to do? Like the whole thing, it just starts to roll. There's a little bit of Craig McRae at Collingwood last year about St Kilda this year. So I don't know what the scope is. I don't know whether they're good enough, but I know the game plan's good enough because we're seeing it rip apart teams week on week. I'm not quite signing off on the Red Dog just yet, but this is different, isn't it?
Yeah, this is different. But that running capacity, which Ross spoke about, he said the one thing he could guarantee was their power running, and you would have to be able to go the distance with them. And it sort of felt like a nice sentiment to express on the way in. We're searching for a little bit of optimism here. Here's something that you can hang on to, but that has materialised powerfully. And then you combine it with the fact that they're only conceding 7 goals, 5 goals, 11 goals, 8 goals, 10 goals, and 8 goals in their 6 games. Who's the team who's going to kick 12 goals against them? Their next 4 are North Melbourne, Adelaide in Adelaide, the Giants and Hawthorn. Are any of them good enough to put 12 goals on St Kilda? Maybe Adelaide in Adelaide?
Yeah, Adelaide are a good team. Yeah,
but Collingwood can only put 10 on them in Adelaide.
Adelaide have got the best forward 50 in the comp. So they certainly
So that's probably your next real test of who can score against them.
And they'll go in quick. They won't wait. Yep. They won't wait for perfection. They'll just get it into players that they know can make strawberry jam out of you-know-what. But St Kilda are doing all this with a forward 50 that's ranked 16th.
Yeah. And we said at the end of last week, the 2 players, they need 2 key post forwards. Oh, guess what? They're both on the injury list. One's back and one's coming. So they're going to improve within season, not only as they get better at their own system, but as you rightly point out, with the personnel. The personnel they need are on the list. It's not we're searching for this in the next draft. They're there.
And a ruckman that can run. Like I see Marshall charging up and down the ground. And it's a big difference to not have that lumbering guy. And I saw Pitnet have to chase Marshall all around the ground. And I thought this is an advantage that, Tim English did the same thing last Friday. He's just charging. He's just going, and you see Darcy, who was very good in his own way, doing his thing, but he couldn't go with him. So the extra runner as a ruckman is a significant advantage. If it's not having to play a small, you're not going with a Sean Grigg type. You're going with a bona fide tap ruckman that can run. There's so many advantages. Sinclair as a wild card, getting thrown to the midfield after half-time the last few weeks to really re-energise their run in there. So they've just got assets at the moment that are really hard to take off them. So you've got to engage in their game more often than not. That is coaching. Come and play us in our strength area for 120 minutes.
Yep. And this correspondent points out they've got 10 of their last 17 at Marvel.
Oh, no.
If they are the Red Dog at Marvel.
Oh, no.
It's just an old idea.
Did you text that to yourself? End of 17. That's how many of those are they going to win? So they go 6 of
most.
So they go 6. They're in, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what position.
Yeah, they're making finals from here.
Could they be top 4?
Well, I like they could be the Collingwood of last year, the team nobody, and then it slowly materialises, and then we get to the end, and it's like, oh, we always knew. No, we didn't.
No.
So it's after 3 rounds, you could tell that this was something that needed to be reassessed. No more patting on the head. Oh, you're doing a lovely job, St Kilda. It's significantly more than that.
I've seen you do that round here.
And they only went down by a goal to the team who we believe is the benchmark in Collingwood. So their form absolutely stacks up.
It does.
PFI. They had PFI.
And this is they've had to cobble the team together. So just keep that in the back of your mind. This has been without the captain at times. It's been without all talls. It's been without midfield talent. They've had to make do. So I'm excited. And we said it last night. As brutal as this sounds, the coaching change, let's just say it cost $400,000. It's the best $400,000 St Kilda have spent in 20 years. They've churned through a lot of cash on unsuccessful runs, but this has got direction. If it's this year, terrific. It's definitely going to be in the next 2 or 3. So full credit to those that had to make some really brutal decisions that don't sit well with you for the rest of your life. But this is why you do it, because the whole club now, the club is united and charging. They can all see it. So every decision you make now will be a good one because you're just in that space. So full credit to the on-field matching the off-field.
The debate for Skyfe, kick financial goals with Skyfe. No, I'm going to start that again. The debate is for Scyfe, kick financial goals with Scyfe. Download the app. Welcome aboard, Scyfe. Apologies. Are we debating Geelong?
We can do that. Yeah. What do you want to debate?
They're 3-3 with a percentage of 137, and they just made a mess of the team that they made a mess of in the grand final.
Gerard, if they didn't make a mess of Sydney without any key backs, to the point where it is comical that they had to put their tallest midfielder at fullback on time, if they didn't make a mess of Sydney, we'd be talking about Geelong.
Yes, we would.
So I'm happy not to buy in like everyone else. I marvel at what their top 2 or 3 players are able to do every week. In Dangerfield, rip, tear and bust. He was doing we said he was trying too hard a couple of weeks ago. He was trying to be everything for this group that he was running himself into the ground and bashing himself at every stoppage. Cameron's still doing what Cameron's been doing for the last 30 weeks of footy. And then the support crew played a fair bit better over the last couple of weeks than where they've been the first few weeks. But I'm not jumping on just yet. I want to see it on the MCG against a good team or a team that's in good health. I understand those who are excited by what they saw. It was great to watch. It was. And sometimes to get a fill up like that, it does tremendous things for your footy club and your belief and where you're going. So I understand a lot of people getting excited about it. I still want to see it. I want to see it against a good team in reasonable health.
They're in the season, though, aren't they?
Oh, they're in the season. Yeah, but there's 10 teams in the season, isn't there? All we're doing is trying to work out where they are on the chart. I mean, do you elevate them to top 3 on the back of that game? Do you have them 4th, 5th, 6th? I don't know. If they're 6th, I'm not jumping up and down if they're 5th or 6th on your seedings. I'm not 100% a believer. You've picked that up, I reckon, over the last few weeks.
Yep.
So I'm happy to sit there. I'm happy to not just jump back on them just yet. It's always tougher to win back-to-back flags, and not a lot has to go wrong for it to go wrong.
Yeah,
but their leaders.
Their only measure can't be back-to-back.
No, it's
not.
not.
They were being dismissed as a finals chance. They're still a top 4 team, I think, in what they've been previously, and they ran out of credits real quick on the back of a premiership. But I still think, I think it was perfectly foreseeable. They're trying to be 4-4 after 8, and the worry was that they wouldn't be. Well, they will be now. They'll win one of their next 2, and they'll be 4-4, and then we'll see what they're going to amount to. The one right, they have played the two very lowly teams and a previously highly ranked team with all the wrong injuries. I totally concede that part of it.
That's why I'm not jumping up and down.
Yeah.
And I still.
But they have tuned their game,
Yep.
and the players who were nowhere in the first 3 weeks, and I probably would put Max Holmes as never mind Hawkins, that was a different conversation. But that style of player who was just nowhere coming out off good seasons is Max Holmes is now progressively working his way into the season, and he's indicative of about a dozen of them, I reckon.
Yeah, and I'm not here to argue. We all see it differently, okay? I don't think they're the defensive product that they've been over the last few years. I still don't. And I'm not going to overly assess the weekend's game because Sydney had to change everything they are to try and stay in that game. Lee Montagna showed some terrific vision last night. They're having to hold an extra man behind the ball. It just didn't work. It gave Geelong an extra at the stoppage. They brained them at stoppage, and then they were just too good. They were just too good and too big and too strong one-on-one forward of the ball. So Sydney had to try something that's not them to compete in this game. So you can say, you can go as far as you want with that assessment. I'd choose not to. I'm not disregarding Geelong's effort and their ability to just punish them. Terrific. Tick. Well done. Stack your wins. But I'm not saying, that performance there is the one I want to attach to from the weekend. It's not. The next two games will mean more in the premiership race to me than what Geelong beating a banged-up Sydney did this week.
And that's Essendon and Adelaide.
Yeah.
So they're good markers. But you will start to assess now without being dismissive of them.
You got to have an opinion, Gerard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're still entitled to. They're still entitled to be assessed.
Yeah. Didn't we just assess it?
Yeah.
I think that's what we just did. I'm not overly assessing or endorsing a win against Sydney without their All-Australian back pocket, no centre half back, no fullback, to the point where they have to put Mills on ball. They have to hold an extra on baller behind the ball, giving up all clearance opportunity in Geelong. Just not for me. But that's okay. I'm happy for you to be on the other side. I'm happy for everyone to be on the other side. We're doing comparisons to probably 5 or 6 other teams that we think are around the mark. I would, if you could do the fixture for me, I would love for them to play St Kilda on Friday. And let's find out where they're at. Let's find out against a team that's in good order, reasonable health, playing some high-level footy. I'm not here to anger the Geelong fans. I'm not. I'm just assessing them against Brisbane, Melbourne, Collingwood, those sorts of teams. And that's all we're trying to do. That's what we do with Seedings. But it is, in saying that, it is good to see their key 3 or 4 players playing some great footy.
Biggest loss of the John Longmire era.
Is that right?
It is. And a reprise of so much of what happened on grand final day. So the curiosity is how much owes to what was missing, or how deep would you dig today if you're John Longmire at his review?
Well, they've got a few problems that were problems late last year in the biggest of games. So we keep talking. So break the game down as we did 2 weeks ago. The inside-out game happens 100 times per game, so the ability to win it in tight and then get it to the outside. And once it gets to the outside, it goes into general play. So then you go contest to contest. Whether you've got it or they've got it, you've either got to win it back or you've got to continue your possession chain to try and score. So then you've got to win the contest outside of traffic, if you like. So they're called the post-clearance contests. So in general play contests, that's where they're poor. Now, that either stops your ability to continue on and score, or it means you can't stop the opposition from taking the ball further down the field and scoring. So coming into this round, it was an issue for them. They were the poorest of the top 8 teams. So they ranked, I think they were ranked like 11th, 12th. But it basically means you're the worst of the top 8, if you are considered a top 8 team, which we all probably think they are. And on the weekend, they get smacked again, minus 16. Now, minus 16's a lot because it means you either haven't stopped them 8 times going their way and you haven't continued yours going 8 times your way. So it's effectively 16 opportunities to score or to continue. So that's a big number. So I think they've got problems in that space. Now, that can be fixed with talent, either playing higher level football, performing better, Heaney winning more one-on-ones, more contested marks, or bringing Franklin back in, and then you win those contested marks or those contested situations when the ball drops, or a centre-half back coming back. Rampy winning 3 contests in a row rather than the next ranked player losing 3 in a row. So they're little things. So it can be fixed with talent, but it's been an issue for a while. It's not a new thing. So I think John Longmire's got a problem with that. And what that does do, it challenges where you're putting the magnets. So are they getting the most out of Heaney, how he's playing right now? Are they getting the most out of Papley? And last week you'd probably say yes. Yep. But this is a week-to-week discussion. You're always reevaluating. Luke Parker, what are you? Are you the inside-out midfielder, or do we have to look at you as a half forward now? Do we have to give another player exposure in that area? So I think there's a few concerns, but they're not new, and they handled them last year. They still found ways to win, even though this was sort of a bit of a stone in the shoe. So they will back themselves to correct. But what we saw on the weekend, it is all dissipated because they were challenged to cover areas that they just couldn't cover. They're not the full product when they're full healthy.
Yep.
So it's a challenge, isn't it, Gerard? But I'm giving them a mulligan for the weekend's performance, but the issues are still there.
The pressure index sits firmly on Fremantle and Justin Longmuir. So we had the long-form conversation on Crunch Time on Saturday. I'd direct you to that podcast. We went deep there with Mark McClure, David King, and Sam Edmund, who was very provocative and pointy. What to do, how to react. So the pressure for Justin Longmuir, I suspect, is you've got 6 weeks' worth of evidence. What are you going to do with that evidence? I don't imagine you can just sit there and go, this is going to correct now. You have to get to the business of correcting it, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so Michael Voss and Justin Longmuir are in similar boats, aren't they? They've got what they think are the bones of a really good team. They've got their philosophy on the game, but their philosophies are being challenged. So how much do you give up as a coach? Given you've probably said your thoughts on the game to your group for a couple of seasons now, so they know when you're being real and when you're being fraudulent. If you walk in today and go, you know what, I didn't believe any of that stuff I told you for 18 months. This is now what I think. They go, hang on a minute, that's not. So you've got to walk in and basically concede that what you think about the game in certain phases isn't actually taking you to the promised land. So you've got to have a moment where you say, you show some vulnerability. Hey, this is what I thought, but this is not really helping us. So I'm going to give up on this, and we're going to try this. Now, Damien Hardwick did that at the end of 16, and they become a powerhouse playing. They went from a safe, controlled brand of footy where fundamentally the coach doesn't trust the players to play their game and express themselves and not necessarily hold onto the footy and play a controlled game. Trust that they're going to be scored against at times, but they're going to play some pretty good footy as well. That's a big concession. That's, to take the game from control to chaos is the greatest move a coach can make. Now, I think Justin Longmuir has to take that leap of faith with this group and find out. Because if you don't find out, you'll never know what the scope is. It's the old Peter Brock story. You've got to drop it into top gear and go flat out down the straight and see what you can get to, see what times you can actually do. They don't know the scope for this group yet because they've played controlled for so long and haven't really opened it up. So I would suggest, even if you are going to lose games in the next six weeks or so, find out what you've got under the bonnet and then work from there. And then you can tinker and you can say, boys, let's go extreme. They'll love it. If the coach walks in and says, we're going to play, we're going to express ourselves, let's go, the whole joint jumps straight away. But if you come in and say, oh, look, we just got to find that uncontested mark. We've got to find that first uncontested mark, and then we settle, and then we just do this, and they go, oh, here we go again, This is not working. So you end up all sitting there nodding in meetings, and inside between the ears, you're saying, this is not going to work. So they've seen what's not working, change, address the elephant in the room, embrace it as a group, and do something about it. Show us what it can look like. So it's pretty simple for us outside looking in, but when you're in the cauldron of clubland, it doesn't come that simple.
I feel like the worst bit of the weekend is the Touk Miller injury. That's not to discount anyone else's injuries, and we're in the unknown at the moment. He's of the view that he hasn't done his ACL, which is hopeful, whether it's a medial, but for where the Suns find themselves right now, and we know what a driving force he is, it was a game they had to win, and they did win it. They started really well, but by the end of it, I feel like if you're a Suns supporter, you're morose instead of up and, got to win, try to set them on their way, but the Miller injury sits so heavily over it.
In the last 24 months, if you could choose two players that you want to be upright and healthy, it'd be Ben King and Touk Miller. And I feel for Stuart too. Every piece in this puzzle that he's trying to put together, and they've still got there's still got holes in that list, which is another topic for another day. But he's the one they couldn't lose. And it may be a meniscus. We're hoping it's just a meniscus and that little catching in the locking of the knee there. But it's going to be a few weeks minimum, isn't it? At a time where he couldn't afford to lose a player of this quality for that period. So I feel sorry for Stewie, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You know, you look at Anderson, you look at Rowell, who are playing some very good footy. They've been terrific the last few weeks. Noah Anderson's a top liner in our competition, but largely unrecognised because he hasn't won a game off his own boot against a Collingwood or a Geelong or someone like that. So. No, we wait and see what they become now, but I feel for Stewie Jude. This is one that they couldn't afford to lose.
They got that right. So I think
before you leave injuries, can I just throw one out?
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of soft tissue, like large scale soft tissue injuries around the competition at the moment. Do you think that when the Players Association discussed with the players last year minimum time offs and off season requirements and across the competition, we basically most of our league had a 6 to 8 week pre-season, which was a lot shorter than previous. There was less requirements pre-Christmas than what there'd been prior to that. I don't think it's helped us. I really don't. I'd love to get some numbers on, and you never really get the numbers till too far down the track. But when we get those numbers on what the block of injuries has been like for the first 6 to 8 weeks, as opposed to last year and the year prior to that and the year prior to that, because I remember pre-season, some pre-seasons would be like 8 to 10 weeks before Christmas, and then you come back, you go again, and then all of a sudden games start middle February, and then you roll into the season. We'd have 3 practice matches. The exposure was huge, and then you're rolling. Oh no, that's too many. We've got to cut that back to 2 practice matches. Then we go back. Now this year, and we did pre-season, they were playing games. Internal scratch matches very early, and the block of actual training was largely up to the player to do during his time off. I don't think that served him well.
Okay,
I'll just put a hold on the absolute
open
numbers.
Question.
Yeah,
that's an open question.
Have you noticed more?
No, I've noticed the trauma injuries.
The big ones.
Yeah. Which are the gladiatorial nature of the game, and that idea that somehow the game's gone soft, which sometimes gets sent through and go, well, no, it really hasn't.
Well, Sam Taylor's done a big hamstring.
Yep.
A tendon, I think.
Yeah. The trauma injuries have been off the charts, I feel, and that's not. I don't raise that in any way for alarmism. Yep. It's just a reality of this is how fearsome the game is. It's lost nothing. It still requires the players to be incredibly brave to play it. And if that means this is where they got that right, is Michael Christian suspending Callan Ward, that's exactly right. We're 6 weeks into it. It'll only take 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks of being hardcore on the dangerous tackle, and you will achieve behavioural change. We started to see behavioural change on the weekend.
Yeah.
If you stay rigid on it and see it all the way through, for all that's been spoken about in that tackle, there's no need for Ward to take Neil to ground. You can have any view you like around actions. There is zero need for Ward to take Neil to ground. And if in 2 weeks' time we have fully achieved that by just picking off each of these dangerous tackles, then that will be the system working for a safer outcome.
How long do you reckon we've sat in here and said, hey, suspension's too soft, you're not changing behaviour? We've talked about that. I have banged on about that for, I reckon, 5 years, trying to change the trauma to the head, and we've tiptoed around it, and really it's taken a long time to get to this point. I don't know why, for intelligent people at the back office, it took so long for us to arrive here, but thank God we're here. Do you... I laughed at Sammy Edmund on Saturday when he said he's going to lay them down. Marcus Bontempelli laying him down.
So clever.
It was when you see on the weekend. So there's a classic one with McEntee from Port Adelaide where he stops the spinning motion and grabs the player to stop him actually rotating and hitting the deck.
Yeah.
So it is getting through. So if it's getting through to Bontempelli as an experienced campaigner and a young player like McEntee, then there's no excuses for anyone else.
Yep. So just finish the job. You're 2/3 of the way there. Finish the job. But what they got wrong is these Sunday time slots are ludicrous, Kingy. I'm sitting on the couch yesterday. I'm so enjoying Adelaide and Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Scores are level. Hawthorn kicked the goal to break the deadlock, and the opening siren sounds at Carlton and St Kilda. And I'm deeply invested in Carlton and St Kilda. So I have to flick it off. And I spend the next 20 minutes going back and forward and not fully appreciating what's happening. Just, it's a 12:40 start. 12:40 clears the way for 3:20. This is the easiest thing to fix I've ever seen in the fixture, is we have a block of games that are unscheduled from round 16 onwards. The early start on Sunday should be 12:40. So that this is the third time this year, the first game's been a cliffhanger, and the second game, which I was deeply interested in, you have to flick. It's ridiculous. There's going to be an overlap with Twilight if you don't make it a night game, and that's a totally different discussion. The early game into the 3:20 game is so easily fixed. Blow the siren at 12:40. Stop cannibalising your own product.
Answer's KO, Gerard. Just watching on delay.
Yeah, I want it all in real time, and it's easily achievable. It should be one to flow into the other.
Do you think they'll do it?
Oh, they should do it.
Do you think they'll do it?
No. I wish they would. I wish they would.
I'm with you. So Thursday nights is your gripe?
Oh, Thursday nights is just a lock. I don't understand why we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But this is that's a different discussion around days breaks, and so that's a more nuanced and complicated discussion. 12:40 is so easy to achieve. There's no difference between 12:40 and 1:10, except that you get the neat flow into the next game.
If you can make that happen, Gerard.
Stop climbing on top of each other with the games.
Like it.
There's still so much to play out in this round. You have an open question around tonight, Kingy.
Well, if you keep telling a person they can't kick, you know what? You'll be right. You'll talk them into bad form, Gerard.
Not being a kick.
Yeah, not being able to kick. So I'm looking at Tim Taranto, okay? He's had a strange season by foot. He's off with his kicking. So what do? Do you encourage him to continue to be a kicker? Because when he steps out of traffic, forwards move. Forwards are leading. So as soon as he delays, if he gives another handball, it throws the timings out of all leads and anything forward of that play. So this year he went 18 kicks, 14 handballs, 15-13, 16-13, 12-15. Then last week, 10 kicks, 24 handballs. Yep. So I wonder if he was got to by the coaches, hey, you're not kicking well enough. You now become a handball. Now, does that serve them well? Is my question. I don't know if the 10-24 is what I want to be seeing. I think you've just got to absorb the fact that, you know what, he's going to miss a few kicks. Let's not consume him with low confidence in what he's doing and encourage him to hit his way out of a slump.
Yes. So the cricket analogy is a good analogy here. So hit your way out of the slump.
Yeah.
Keep kicking.
That's what I would be saying. Keep kicking. And you know what? We'll have a patch where you're hitting them beautifully, but right now you're not. So if he becomes a handballer, then I sort of wonder what his worth is to Richmond's midfield. That would be my question. And he's ranked 294th rated kicker in the comp at the moment, so he's a long way down the pops. But I don't ever think he's going to be a top 15 kicker. So if he gets back to, say, AFL 100th, he'll be a seriously good AFL player. But right now, this is the stone in the shoe.
Yep, and it's such an important night for Richmond.
Huge.
I think so. Melbourne on the rebound, fully stocked. Like if they don't meet the occasion tonight, it could be messy. So they've got to meet the occasion.
We keep saying it's not who you play, it's when you play them. They look at the ins tonight, Gawn and Lever, and they go, what have we done wrong?
Yes.
Richmond's thinking, why couldn't we have played Sydney this week? Or why couldn't we, Anyway, that's just their lot. But I'm looking for Taranto. I'm looking for what the ratios are this week.
Can you just come inside my footy ops meeting for a moment and review the score review late in the game on the Gold Coast? Do you think on the Stevenson kick, on the three angles and the edge, I'm playing it for you here, do you think that ripple actually marries up with the ball scratching the post?
I didn't at the time. I watched this in real motion. I think the players have generally got a pretty good handle too. He goes, that didn't hit the post, no way.
So the three angles suggest there's daylight between the ball and the post, but there is something on edge. What is that something?
I don't know. Does someone flick the post?
No, there's no one around the post. I feel like I can I can rule that out as a
This is
possibility.
your wheelhouse, this.
It is.
I don't want to come into this meeting. You just tell us what the findings are.
This is there are sort of disqualifiers in the DRS cricket process. So as soon as one of these appears, it overrules everything else. So the ripple on the edge is used that way. That's the decider. You go, but I don't think the ball hit the post, and I don't think any of your visuals show the ball hitting the post. Anyway, it's just that's an open question.
Rob the Kangaroos of a very important goal, Gerard.
Just
We haven't kicked too many.
This week's seeding slight change because we both have Melbourne, Collingwood 1-2. Pick your order, but they haven't played.
I like the fact we got 2 of the 4 done.
Yes. So our seedings are from 3 to 6 this week.
They're not, are they?
Yeah. So Melbourne and Collingwood are locked, but they haven't played. Who knows what the order is?
Okay.
6.
6. I'm going to go with Adelaide at 6.
Yep.
I love what Adelaide are doing. They found a way to win ugly on the weekend, and we learnt about their leadership.
6 Bulldogs. They're about to go on a spree.
I don't have
I think they're going to claim the next 20 points.
That's funny.
Bulldogs at
That's
6.
very good. You'll get one of these right sooner or later.
5. I'm shooting too broad, aren't I? Really? Just claim the next 8 points.
Just go. Yeah, just stay down.
5?
5's too many. I've gone Port Adelaide, and I haven't really been in love with them across the course of the year, but I'm just starting to see some things with their kids and their excitement in game. They're playing an up-tempo, high-energy game. It's easy on the eye, and it's easy to fall in love with.
Geelong at 5 for me, pending what happens against Essendon and Adelaide as to whether they're sliding up. 4.
Well, I've had to recognise the Saints eventually. I mean, if they keep doing this, and they keep dismembering teams, and they keep enforcing their strategy, and their talent's only going to get better, 4 for me.
4 Brisbane Lions. Salute to Charlie Cameron, what he did.
Yeah, they're 3. 3 for me.
Yeah, okay.
They're 3 for me. So we agree on them.
Yep.
Who's your
St Kilda's 3.
Yeah.
So they've been 3 for a few weeks for
We've
me.
got the same top 4.
Yep, we do.
I've
So
got
pending
Port-
what happens with Melbourne and Collingwood.
Port and Adelaide, and who have you got at 5?
Geelong and the Bulldogs.
Oh.
So that's 3 through 6 of our seedings this week.